Hi everyone, my name is Katie Morell. I am a San Francisco-based independent journalist. I write for a variety of different business magazines and newspapers. And I'm really excited to be hosting this panel today. Thank you all for coming. I hope you're enjoying NextCon as much as I have. First, right next to me is Eric Sue. Eric is the CEO of Single Grain, which is a Los Angeles-based digital marketing agency. He works with Fortune 500 companies such as Salesforce and Intuit to help scale their revenues using a combination of SEO and advertising strategies. He regularly contributes his expertise to publications such as Entrepreneur, Business Insider, Forbes, Fast Company, and Time Magazine. And he hosts 2 podcasts. One is Growth Everywhere, and the other is Marketing School with Neil Patel. Next to him is Bill Slosky. Bill is an SEO expert. He is based in Southern California and has been promoting websites online since the mid-90s. When search engines opened up, he started doing SEO, learning about SEO, teaching SEO, and he now writes about search and SEO on his blog, SEO by the Sea. He is also director of marketing for Go Fish Digital, which is an SEO and online reputation management company. Next to him is Ben Tyson. Ben is global lead of live training at Google. He's based in Silicon Valley and leads the external education team to help come up with information for Google's agencies and partners on consumer behavior and products. And last but not least is Yaniv Mesjedi. I'm sure you've seen him on stage this week. Yaniv joined Nextiva back in the early days in 2008, and he currently serves as the company's chief marketing officer. He manages Nextiva's marketing and branding efforts by working to create strategies that drive awareness, strengthen the Nextiva brand, and share the story of the company's unique and customer-centric culture, which is known as amazing service. Just like Eric, he also contributes regularly to publications such as Entrepreneur, Fast Company, Forbes, Huffington Post, Salesforce's blog, All Business, and Under 30 CEO. So please help me in welcoming the panel. Okay, so there's so much happening in marketing. So much has changed over the years. I'm just going to throw this out to all of you. What are some of the exciting new developments that you're seeing in the marketing space lately? Are there any particular campaigns that you're really excited about, or just things that you're really excited about? Go ahead, Eric. You can go ahead and start.
Yeah, I think it has to be Gmail advertising. So for one of our clients, their target cost per acquisition was $150. And with Gmail ads, we're able to get it to $7. When you're able to acquire leads at that scale and very quickly, it's worth taking a look at because not a lot of people are doing it right now. And whenever you can arbitrage something like that, it's worth jumping into.
Great. What about you, Bill?
One of the things that we're seeing from places like Google is the use of machine intelligence and artificial intelligence to help index and crawl websites and understand the content of websites better. You don't need to be a computer scientist or a mathematician to take advantage of that. I think there's some strategies that you can follow that will help you have content on your website indexed intelligently.
Yeah, I remember you telling me a little bit about knowledge panels also, which is something that I don't think everyone really knows what those are, and it seems like it's something new and exciting that's happening.
Right, back in 2011, Google started working with knowledge. They changed the search division, the name of it, from a search division to a knowledge division. And they started showing knowledge panels and search results that talk about entities that might appear in people's queries. It helps build brand awareness of businesses that show up in them. It's a more visual approach. You end up seeing a lot of photographs of people, of places. They tell you people who search for this also search for, they created a knowledge panel for me. They say that people who search for me also search for Steve Jobs, Gene Roddenberry, George Orwell. I'm not sure how I fit in there, but it was good to see.
How do you, if you're a marketer in the audience and you want a knowledge panel about yourself or about your business, how do you actually get on that right hand,
Okay, so Google has a developers blog, and they provide hints on things like that in that developers blog. One of the things that they say about having a knowledge panel show up for you is to make sure you verify, register your business with Google My Business. It will help you achieve a knowledge panel. There's also, you can include structured data on your website, and the developers blog describes how to include that type of stuff on your website. It's worth looking at. So I included structured data on my website that told Google where my social profiles were, my Twitter page, my LinkedIn page, my Facebook page, and they created a knowledge panel for me, included those links to those pages.
Okay, that's a great tip. Yeah, that's something exciting that's happening. What about you, Ben? What's exciting that's happening in the marketing world these days?
I think that video is really an up-and-coming source of marketing, and it's becoming a little bit less of a barrier of entry for the long tail and mid-market customers to get into. But furthermore, I'm sure Gopi had mentioned a lot of insights into video in regards to brand yesterday. But I mean, we believe like by 2019, about 80% of the content that we interact with online is going to be in regards to video. It's a great source for not only external marketing, but as well as internal marketing to your team. I know you have NextTV, which is amazing. I was just giving the rundown on that. But when I talk about video, specifically in the segment that we're in here, when I look at like the long tail customer, how-to videos are the #1 search thing in the search bar on YouTube. So for example, one of the campaigns, I think you mentioned campaigns, that I love is there is a HVAC company in Texas, and they did a how-to video for every single brand or make and model of air conditioning unit they carried on how to change the air filter. What's interesting is that if you're anything like me, you watch a how-to video on how to fix an air conditioning, you say, the hell with this, I'm going to call the company to do this for me. But what they found is an absurd number of people, over 3/4 of individuals that watched that particular video ended up contacting them to change their air filter, which created opportunities for upsell into new units, et cetera. So step one, I think, for everyone there is what can you do to create a how-to video? It's something I mentioned in my earlier session as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, Gopi was mentioning yesterday, YouTube being the #2 search engine.
Yes, that's
right?
very true. Yeah.
And once you get them in within your funnel, customer testimonials and having people speak about your experience and talking about your company and really helping advocating your brand can be so powerful. So testimonials can really support the effort post how-to video. Another thing we've done at Nextiva, and it's a growing form of marketing and sales, is videos. If you have an inside sales team, making a video for a prospect and making the experience personal, and getting your sales representative or customer service representative in front of a camera. It doesn't need to be a fancy camera, it can be an iPhone, and just making a quick 30-second video explaining about your company and talking about how you provide value.
I'm sure that they then share those with other people and say, look, this company just made this video about me.
Totally.
Yeah,
Can I add on to that, actually?
Please.
I want to, you just mentioned something. All the how-to videos that this HVAC contractor shot were from a tablet. I'm not going to say the name of the tablet. It's a little disappointing, but it was an iPad, but that's okay. But yeah, so it shoots 4K video, which is essentially HD. So the barrier to entry is almost non-existent with the technology to get into video. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I'd love to actually go a little bit deeper into video in terms of people who are in the audience who have not really tried it. You said that you can try it with your iPhone, you can try it with your iPad. Is there anything that...
Or Android.
Android,
yeah,
right.
Or Pixel is fine.
Or non-Apple products. Are there any other tips for people? I mean, should you just be posting them on your social media? Should you post them on your website? In terms of marketing, what are some of the most effective vehicles for that, for video?
I think you can use them for ads. I mean, sorry to interrupt.
No,
yeah?
please.
Yeah. So, for us, we create a lot of videos, and basically we'll put them in Facebook or YouTube ads, right? And we'll basically start them off as an introductory video. So it might be a how-to to begin with, and after they watch, 50 to 75%, then we're going to retarget them with another video, then another video. So we're not saying to them, hey, come buy our stuff. We're saying, hey, we're just going to continue to add value. Like clearly you're enjoying what we're sending you, so we're just going to continue to add value. Maybe we'll send them to a video and say, hey, you should check out our ebook or some training down the road.
Right, right. That makes sense. Okay, so Eric, since you're already talking, I would love to kind of pivot this a little bit. I had mentioned in your bio that you do some podcasting. And I know that I subscribe to maybe 10 or 15 podcasts, and I listen to them all the time. For people out there that want to do this for their businesses and want to kind of integrate this into their marketing strategies, what would be some advice for you? It just seems like there's so much noise out there. How do you rise above? How do you start a podcast? How do you make it really effective?
Right. So in the podcast world right now, you see a lot of people, they're doing interviews all the time, right? And it's like a great question. How do you stand out? So the growth everywhere, the interview I interview a lot of different entrepreneurs, but there's so many of those, and it's taken 3 years to get to where we are right now. It's this long growth, right? But the new podcast I started with Neil, we're at about 300,000 listens a month, and it's only been like 3 months so far.
Wow.
And it's because we do it every single day, and it's 10 minutes of actionable insight. So
you do podcasts every single day?
Every single day, Monday through Sunday.
So do you work with him? Like you just...
Yeah, like last week we were in Brazil, both speaking at a conference, and we're like, we need to record like right now. So we'll batch like 20 to 30, and we'll just crank through it.
Wow.
But like doing one every single day, that's something that stands out, and then making it 10 minutes instead of 20, 30, 40 minutes. Because we get a lot of feedback, people saying like, I don't have time to listen to like an hour every day, but you guys just give me something to do, and boom, that's it. So I think you have to do something different from the crowd. Go the other way, right? If everybody's doing an interview, go the other way. I think right now podcasting is such a big opportunity because you're seeing it pop up more, and you're going to see it pop up in cars now, right? People are talking about it more and more. You can see people asking about, oh, what podcast should I be listening to? So now's the time to get in on it. But you have to stand out if you're going to jump into it.
So in terms of standing out, if someone in the audience is maybe a boutique shop owner or an accountant that runs a CPA firm, what would they even talk about in there? Would they give tax tips, or would they like give fashion tips? I mean, how do you even know what you should be doing if you've never tried this? And what if you're not really in the place where you can actually interview people every day or every week? Yeah,
so I think the tax one's perfect. And I mean, let's take the tax person, for example. Let's take Michael McCallowitz. He spoke, right? He's got a lot of great content on his blog. You can easily take all the stuff that he's had, use like Screaming Frog or something like that to crawl the entire website, or Google Analytics, and export it, and just see like all the stuff that's performed well, and just convert it into a podcast. So there's a lot of stuff that's been done already. You just need to go out there and repurpose it, and it shouldn't take that long. He can literally do the 5 to 10 minute thing too, and it actually drives leads. And the thing is, like, the leads that come from the podcast are incredibly high quality because they know you already, and the sales cycle is much shorter, and the LTV or lifetime value is much higher.
Oh, that's really interesting. Wow. Okay. So let's talk about social media marketing. For all of you who went to the Blogettes panel yesterday, I know it sold out. It was really incredible. But I would love, for people who didn't go, it seems like social media marketing can be kind of a can of worms. For the panel, I'd love to just throw it out to all of you. What platforms should entrepreneurs be on? How should they leverage that for marketing purposes? Should they be on every single platform? I mean, Yaniv, I'd love to start with you about that.
Yeah. I would say these days you do have to, in most businesses, having a presence on all platforms is important. However, you do want to focus on where your audience and where your customers are. So in the case that, like, I believe in the case of the Blogettes, they were talking about Pinterest. If you focus on interior design and your customers are interior designers, Pinterest may make more sense than, let's say, another platform such as LinkedIn. So I believe it really just depends on the audience, but there is no question that you can't really just focus on one and that's it.
Right, right. Yeah, anyone else in terms of social media, or go ahead, Bill.
Sure, I read patents from Google to try to learn about things that they're doing. I came across one a couple weeks ago where they talked about how they might use social networks to influence the search results you see and personalize them. So I think maybe if you write in communities at Google Plus and talk to people, respond to things, threads people start, you might start seeing stuff that you write about, stuff that you talk about with other people within those communities, and maybe build relationships with them.
Right.
You're already connected to them through a social graph, through that social network. You can see them in search results.
Right, and that's just marketing itself right there. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But would Google Plus be the only social platform
That
they
was
would
the only.
focus on?
That was the only one I would assume they have enough control over to
It's just not
use
too many
data
people
from.
use it, right?
Right, Google Plus is kind of.
What?
No offense.
Yeah.
We've seen stories from TechCrunch that talks about Google Plus being a graveyard, but if you actually use the network, you do get lots of interaction with people.
Yeah.
That's true. Actually, I thought the same thing before, and I was looking at the small business groups on Google Plus, and it's actually super, super engaged. So, I mean, do you have any numbers you can share around that?
No, I don't.
No? Okay. Just wondering.
Yeah. Okay. So, kind of more rapid fire questions. In terms of content marketing, I'd love to start with you, Eric. You know, there are entrepreneurs that hear the words content marketing, they think, oh, do I need to write 5 blogs a day, 4 blogs a month? What should they do? Or should they be talking to influencers only? Or should they have their CMO write all of the blog? I mean, what should entrepreneurs know in terms of content marketing when they're just getting into this?
Yeah, great question. I think when you're first starting out, the entrepreneur needs to be doing, let's say you're starting out from scratch, right? It's hand-to-hand combat all the time. So you need to figure out what that looks like, you know, what a good blog post looks like or whatever content you're creating. You need to set the criteria first, so then you can eventually go out there, hire an editor, I don't know, go to ProBlogger.net, their job board's great, and then pick up somebody to help you scale it out from there, which is exactly what we're doing with, we have a gun blog right now, and I'm not into guns, but my partner is. A gun blog,
wow.
Yeah. And that's growing like gangbusters right now. And he was writing all this stuff originally, and I was like, okay, we need to set the criteria now, and then now we need to hire the editor, and now we need to hire out more writers that can follow the criteria, and that way we can hit scale. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to grow the business.
So by criteria, you mean like you need an editorial calendar, you need kind of to like set up, you know, the strategy of what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
You're not just going to throw everything out there and see what sticks.
Editorial calendar, big one. I think there needs to be writer's guidelines too, right? Like how many words is each article? What's the format going to look like? Where we're going to get the images from? Like all this stuff, it's a process and it's boring, but you can't scale without like being able to do the boring stuff.
Right.
And then when it comes to, I think content marketing isn't just like, oh, let's go do a blog post. I think it's certainly, you know, you're doing things like podcasts, you're doing things like video, so it's really across the board. So I think everything's coming together now. And I'll go back to growth everywhere. I think for the first year, I was maybe getting like 9 downloads a day. Second year, maybe 50 downloads a day. After that, it's like, you know, a couple thousand a day. And then it translates over into the new podcast. So my point by saying this is like, it takes a lot of time, and not a lot of people are willing to invest the time, because we're talking content marketing is a 12 to 24-month journey, and a lot of people, especially people that raise funds, it's just like, you know, your VCs want you to spend the money on paid ads and let's grow, 7-year journey. But ultimately, if you're trying to build something for the long term, you need to play the long game.
Right. No, that's interesting. I'm going to touch on that later also. But Bill, can I ask you, with SEO and how that relates to content marketing, what insights do you have on that?
Okay. I want to share a story of a content campaign that we did.
Okay.
We ran into an opportunity. We found a guy on Reddit who had a hydraulic press, and he wanted to crush things. And we have a jeweler client who agreed to contribute a 1.2 carat diamond to have this guy with the hydraulic press crush. So he videotaped crushing a diamond. It got 9 million views on YouTube with a mention of the jeweler's name in the video on the transcript for the video, and it linked to the jeweler. It was a lot of publicity for 1.2 carat diamond. I think it was worth spending the diamond on.
Wow. So clearly content marketing works. Yeah, no, that's very true. Okay, so switching this up a little bit, what about maybe campaigns, or not necessarily individual campaigns to call anyone out, but is there anything that you're seeing in the marketing world that's just not really working right now? I know that you had mentioned a little bit about how it's hard sometimes for entrepreneurs or small business owners to kind of go for the long game. The ROI sometimes just isn't there right away. I mean, is there anything that you guys wanted to add in terms of sticking with it, or how long people should stick with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that first of all, if anyone ever calls you and says, hey, I'll get you on the first page of Google for X amount of dollars, just like hang up the phone, because it definitely is a process, specifically with SEO, which I'm sure everyone on this panel would agree. But even so with search ads, it is, for most of us, for some of you that don't know, It's based on an algorithmic process, which is your max CPC times your quality score plus your ad extensions is going to equal where you sit on the search results if you're doing Google Ads. So when you start a new campaign, your quality score is essentially 0. If we were to take a 0 to 10, or I guess it could be a 1, a 0 to 10 kind of scale. So that takes some time to actually build in order to create the visibility and the ROI that you're looking for. A lot of times it can be expensive in the beginning to create that visibility, but in the long run, your ROI increases as your quality score increases and your cost decreases.
Right.
So I mean, I would stick with it for an extended period of time and it's definitely not a get-rich like marketing scheme. It doesn't work that way, and it takes commitment and time to that adaptation.
Can I add to that?
Please.
I mean, with the Gmail ads, typically startups will come to us and say, okay, we have a $5,000 test budget. And it doesn't really work like that. To Ben's point, I mean, it took us about 4 iterations of testing in about 3 months, and $60,000 was spent before actually making it profitable. We lost money on the first campaign, the second and third broke even. And at that point, people are like, okay, this is clearly not working. You know, Gmail ads doesn't work for us. And even with advertising, yeah, it takes 2, 3+ months to get going. Even though the numbers are very black and white, it's working or not, like it does take time. For ads, you're really looking for traction, right? Not just to get results immediately.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
And
I think
that's the
please.
value also in just analytics, right? Using data and realizing that when you post an ad or you make a landing page or start an email drip campaign, it's not over. It takes daily work. You may think that you built the greatest marketing campaign, but there's constant reviews that need to be made and changes, and truly using the data rather than your opinion.
Can I add something too here?
Yeah. Please.
Like something that I'd like to see maybe changed, and I think is the original question. This is Google's fault in my opinion, but we're so used to attributing value to the last interaction that took place with our customer. And a lot of times it's a search ad. Well, in reality, that's no longer really a valuable way to do it. We consult on average 14.8 sources of information before we make a purchase. So identifying the influence that each of these channels are having, and of course still setting tracking up, but an attribution model versus a last click model is something that we need to shift gears towards, because it's no longer an effective way to make marketing decisions based on, all right, here's my display, here's my search, you can break it down even further, Gmail ads, here's my content marketing. How many leads do they funnel in? It's not a great way to make a marketing decision based on leads by channel versus overall influence that the whole marketing strategy is having. Right,
and I remember talking to you before this panel about how marketing can be everything from obviously the leads digitally, but also just, I remember you saying the Star Wars billboard example where you really have no idea what's hitting and what's not. It's don't throw everything out if you're not getting the clicks, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, hopefully all of you saw Star Wars Force Awakens. It was an amazing movie. But if you see a billboard before that movie came out for Star Wars Force Awakens, how much revenue did that generate? $1 in sales? 100, thousands, millions? Well, the answer is you don't know, right? Because it's a billboard, it's difficult to identify that level of influence. Digital is different because you have much more visibility, but still as the ecosystem is intertwining and we're consulting more resources across social media platforms, display, search ads, organic, etc., it's very difficult to attribute value to the last click.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so switching gears a little bit. So 2 of the men on the panel are internal marketing, and then the other 2 are actually external, and they work for agencies. I guess I'd love to pose this to all 4 of you. At what point should entrepreneurs hire someone internally or hire an external agency? What are the touch points for that? How do they know exactly? Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, so it's funny, I was just telling you before, we have this answer on marketing school with Neil Patel, so you can get his answer too, just shameless plug. But my thing I always tell clients, like initially, like if they're starting out, they might need external help and resources are really short, right? You don't have a lot of employees to help you out, or team members, I should say. And yeah, definitely start with an agency first, but I would say almost always you want to eventually graduate into having people internally. And this is detrimental to me, but like, because I come from the in-house world too, and I've dealt with agencies too in the past, but when you have a team that's able to help you, they understand your product, they're focused on it all the time, that's a better result in the long term. And you might switch in later where you have a couple hundred of team members, and you might need outside agency help too. So I think the pendulum will swing depending on where you're at as a company.
Right, and should this be one of the first hires or one of the first vendor hires in terms of an early stage startup? Or, I mean, I would think that marketing would be incredibly important for.
I mean, assuming you have the other
right
stuff
away.
taken care of, I would say the first hire you probably need is an executive assistant.
Okay.
But beyond that would be, the marketing hire,
Right.
assuming you're ready to scale things.
Yeah, it's vital. What about you, Bill? What do you think?
So one of our clients was really heavily involved in advertising on TV, and they did a good job of it. They had an SEO department that consisted of one guy from the IT department, one guy from the marketing department, meeting once a week and talking about SEO. It sort of reflected in their SEO campaigns. We started working with them. They were ranking well for things like caveman insurance and gecko insurance because that was what they had on TV. They wanted to rank well for car insurance and renter's insurance. As a agency SEO, we spend lots of time studying the search engines, paying attention to news, reading the blogs from places like Google, learning as much as we can. We don't have to, as a in-house SEO, you might be the guy responsible for doing mail merges or making sure the internet's connected right. Because I've done that. I've been in in-house SEO. You sometimes do what's needed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Ben? What do you think?
I think it comes down to four things: time, desire, knowledge, and resources. So if you have those four things, then you could probably do this internally. If you lack those four things, it's more likely important to hire an external agency to really drive that strategy for you, especially in the beginning, in my opinion. The investment of hiring 3 or 4 experts in different marketing channels, average base salary of $50,000, $60,000 a year before 1 cent goes to marketing, sometimes isn't really the most effective way to do that. I mean, everyone knows if we take a different industry, like I could represent myself in the court of law. Everyone knows that, right? Maybe a couple Snickers out there, but I believe, like, hey, if I was to watch My Cousin Vinny a couple times, maybe I'd be able to do it, right? But no one would ever recommend, no attorney would recommend I do that because I don't have time, desire, knowledge, and resources. I think that extends into the marketing side of the business as well.
Great points. Yaniv?
You probably disagree.
I disagree to a certain degree. I mean, first, especially in the early days, if you can get outside help, that's good. But as soon as possible, moving it in-house and really understanding what are the areas that you need to focus on. For example, at Nextiva, we knew that paid search, pay-per-click advertising was going to be very important to us very early on. So one of the first moves we made was bringing in a genius, an expert in the world of pay-per-click, and we focused there. So you don't need to just right out of the bat, right off the bat start with a large group, but you can scale and focus on the areas that you believe will drive the greatest amount of growth.
Mm-hmm. So it really depends on each company. That makes sense. Okay, next question. What are a few marketing tools, or if there's just one, that's fine too, that you use every day, that you absolutely live by? Go ahead, Eric.
Every day, wow. I guess Ahrefs, my background's in SEO, so Ahrefs is a tool where I can look at backlinks, look at how my site's growing, competitor sites, top pages, and things like that. I like the insights from it, and there's comparative tools like SEMrush, things like that.
Okay, okay. What about you, Bill?
I use a program called Screaming Frog web crawler. It allows me to understand the structure of websites, how they're put together, how they connect to each other. It allows me to export my findings to Excel and create content inventories of a website. Look at all the titles and meta descriptions, headings on a website, and understand how it's targeting different words, different audiences. I find it really useful.
Okay, great. Screaming Frog. What about you, Ben?
A lot of internal tools, obviously,
Yeah.
Google Analytics, et cetera. But from an external point of view, I'd say SEMrush is fantastic. From a sales standpoint, I love to use SpyFu. Although some of the data is not always accurate, it just gives you some ideas of what your competitors might be doing in the marketplace, some ideas for ads, et cetera.
Okay, Yaniv?
Yeah, I would definitely vote for SEMrush as well, but and specifically on the SEO side, the page speed insights and understanding, is your site mobile friendly, desktop friendly? Are there any errors on page? And how fast does your site load? I think the Google Page Speed Insights tool is really helpful.
Could I add one?
Yeah.
I have one that's a major steal, so I probably should have shared this one. There's a dashboard tool called Cyphe, that's C-Y-F-E. There's a lot of dashboard tools out there that will charge you 6, maybe 7-figure annual contracts. Cyphe is only $19 a month, super cheap. And you can hook in your different analytics, your paid ads, your Facebook ads, even like your site speed, things like that. So you can just have different dashboards for different campaigns, and you can just look at how things are going really quickly each day. So that's something I use every single day, probably more than Ahrefs.
That's a great insight. I mean, budget friendly also. It's great. Okay, so what are the names of a few sites that you guys read every day? If, marketing or otherwise, go ahead.
Growth everywhere, but Growth Hackers, which is a great site, growthhackers.com, and it shares content that I would say is more on the cutting edge and leading side of marketing tactics that are, I would say, the latest tactics in marketing, not some of the outdated ones. So I definitely vote for Growth Hackers. It's a site that I don't know the last day I haven't been on that site.
Wow. What about you, Ben?
Well, I mean, I'm biased on this one, but the AdWords blog is pretty good to let you know about betas. But I think furthermore, where maybe we kind of drop the ball sometimes is we release these betas without really any insight into how well they work and stuff. I think Search Engine Land does a really good job at kind of diagnosing the best ways to optimize or leverage or use some of the new betas and other insights around AdWords in general.
Great. Bill?
Google has a number of blogs, and one that's sadly overlooked often is Google Developers Blog, which provides lots of hints on how to set up things like structured data on your website. It's useful information I tend to use often.
I'd also vote for your blog, SEO by the Sea.
Thanks.
It was an SEO blog, definitely in the early days of SEO, at least for me personally, was one I would visit back in 2004 regularly. So I admire that site a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, +1 to Bill's blog. It's when I first started learning SEO, I was reading that too. I think for me, Growth Hackers is definitely up there, but there's another one called inbound.org, which is very similar, but inbound.org is more tailored towards, I would say, content marketing, SEO. When you combine the two, it's basically people sharing stuff and kind of upvoting. You have a community like that, it's pretty strong. Reddit has some good stuff every now and then if you just go to the entrepreneurs or startups section. Not so much the marketing section for whatever reason. The marketing stuff is more shared on, or the good stuff is on those other subreddits.
Okay, great. Great insights. Okay, so as we learned on the first day of NextCon with Guy Kawasaki's speech, there are so many entrepreneurs in this audience. I'd love to talk about the advice that all of you have. If you were to start a company right now, what is the first marketing activity that you would do, Eric?
Oh, easy, content marketing. So it's the biggest, I mean, I think all of us here like compound interest. I mean, that's literally what it is. If you just Google compound interest content marketing, you're going to see a venture capitalist named Tomasz Tunguz, very popular in Silicon Valley. And literally, he just writes really insightful stuff. And he showed the compounding effects of content marketing. You see this graph like stacking over time. And yeah, it's most of the time you're going to write something great and you're going to see nothing happen with it. It's like, damn. But you just kind of keep going, keep banging your head against the wall, and eventually you'll get there. And the thing is, like, content marketing sets the foundation for everything else. I don't think everything's should be siloed out. I think you have content marketing, then you're able to retarget people, then you can do the video ad funnel I was talking about, then you can take them to a training, and you take them all the way through the funnel, build like a marketing automation sequence, and that becomes complete. It becomes holistic. I don't think it should, oh, this team's doing this, we shouldn't be doing that, and everybody's fighting each other. I think it should be holistic.
Yeah, that's a really great point. What about you, Bill?
I've really been active in meetup.org, in going to meetups and actually networking with people, learning what other people do. There's a startup community in San Diego that often focuses upon biotech, but there's a lot of people trying different things, and it's a good opportunity to meet new people and talk to people, talk to patent attorneys or somebody who's starting some type of site that touts a app that helps people sleep better.
Right.
It's interesting seeing how much variety there is.
Just on the ground marketing, just old school
Oh,
networking, face to face. Yeah, no, it's great. What about you, Ben?
I agree over here. I do content marketing first. The general initial investment is your time to be able to get that going. And I think that creating a brand for yourself in whatever segment you're in is crucial. And then from there, I'd probably go into AdWords, some sort of paid media to generate more customers. But again, with content marketing, the opportunities come along to be able to remarket to individuals, to create them not as an advocate, but as well as a customer. So that's where I'd start.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and to build on that, definitely content as well as segmenting your audience, understanding your audience, who you should be writing to. Obviously, when you focus on content marketing, not making it a sales pitch and talking about yourself and your products, but understanding the pains in the marketplace and the reasons why your solution is of value to your prospects, but definitely focusing on your audience and understanding what their needs are.
Great.
Is number one.
Okay, so in a few minutes, we're going to have some time for Q&A. So if anyone has a question, I recommend you just kind of line up at these two microphones on both sides of the stage, if you could. But just a couple more questions for the panel. There are a lot of students in the audience, and I wonder if each one of you could kind of go down the line here on tips for getting into marketing. What should you do when it's your first job? How should you get that first job? What can you do to differentiate yourself getting into this industry?
Yeah. Excuse me. I think when you're starting out, you have zero experience. The one thing that you can do is you can reach out. There's a lot of startups out there. You can go to AngelList, reach out to them, and offer to do work pro bono. Because when I first started learning marketing, I had zero experience. What I did was I took an unpaid internship first while I had a full-time job. But you do work for free first, and then eventually everybody needs great marketers. I would argue that people say there's a shortage of designers and developers. I would argue that there's a greater shortage of really good marketers. So if you actually just keep going at it, you reach out to people, do work for free, then you're going to start to build up a resume, and then you can parlay that into something else. That's always worked out really well. I've seen other people do it to me. I've given them a chance, and it's worked out for them.
Okay. What about you, Bill?
One of the best places to learn about the web is on the web. And if you get involved with people, with communities, with forums, you start following different blogs and commenting and having conversations and building relationships, you'll surprise yourself at how much you'll learn. And you can learn a lot. I started out by picking up a Learn HTML in 2 Weeks book and spending 2 weeks and building a site. And I built a site for a couple friends, started promoting it, and Google came along, Alta Vista came along, figured out how to show up in those. And I've been promoting the website since.
Ben?
I would say, first and foremost, do one thing well. You don't need to be a jack of all trades across marketing. It's almost impossible, and I feel that those individuals are extremely rare. Now, with that being said, if you're working for a startup or an SMB as the marketing individual, that wealth of knowledge is very helpful. But if you have a passion or interest in content marketing or search or video or SEO, my advice is be an expert in one subset and figure out how the others filter into that as well. So you have some knowledge of each. But too often I think that young individuals that want to get into digital marketing specifically try to be an expert in everything, which is very difficult to do in my opinion.
And I would say be creative, because in most cases it gets tough. You sometimes get lost, right? And if you just submit an application and expect to hear back, and sometimes a Word document via a resume via a Word document is not always the solution. So being creative, whether that's LinkedIn or other social media platforms, but really showing that you have an interest in joining the company that you're targeting, you have to stand out.
You have to market yourself,
Yeah.
basically, to
Could
be
I
a
add to that?
marketer. Yeah.
I mean, just to give you an example, one full-time writer that we have right now, literally he wrote a complete Medium article. I think it was a couple of thousand words. Like that's exactly what we're looking for. And
About wanting to work at single
about
grain?
why he's be a good fit, what we can fix, like
Wow.
everything. Like that's what you want to do to stand out.
Yeah.
And I'll just give you another example for people that think you need a degree. Like somebody just sent us an email a couple weeks ago saying like I had no degree and we've been listening to marketing school, or I've been listening to marketing school and I just got my first full-time job. So you don't even need a degree for this stuff. You just need to read great content, read great blogs, and just work your butt off.
That's great. Thank you all. Okay, let's go to some questions. If you could introduce yourself with your name and where you're from, and then go ahead with your question. Sir?
Hi. Sorry. Hi, my name is Raz. Actually, first of all, a shameless plugin just because it's relevant. If you want to start a podcast, I have the solution. It's free. It's called Zcast. Just free podcasting for all, so enjoy it. Go check it out. I'm with podcasts. My question is, when you have a product that reaches some initial traction and you really want to get to that go-to-market and growth phase, what's a good base budget to plan for so that you have enough room for do the A/B testing and be able to get to the end point and see the results without running out of money too early?
Anyone?
Any of you?
I'll take it, I guess. So when it comes to, when I was in Brazil with Neil last week, we recorded an episode on marketing budgets. And our take on budgets typically is, there's companies out there, we looked at the numbers, and typically they'll allocate 10 to 15% of top line revenues to budgets. And I think that's just an arbitrary number. I think if you have something that's working well, you're gonna just keep dumping money into it. So it's a bottomless barrel. But I guess when you're talking about budgets for testing, we also did an episode on testing too, where it's like, if you don't even have 10,000 visits a month, you probably shouldn't be testing. And I think when you're talking about testing for ads, 5K is really arbitrary too. So I think you need to set specific goals first, rather than a budget. You need to have certain KPIs to aim for. Once you start trending that way and you can extrapolate the data out and say, okay, well, based on this, it's going to take us, X weeks or months to hit this. Then it's like, then you have something to go with, and you can figure out how much it's going to cost you.
Yeah, to add to that, I was going to say, I believe it's a little bit more scientific than just assigning, hey, $10,000 or $20,000 or 15% of your top line revenue is good. It's going to be different for each one of you in the room, depending on what your KPIs are, what you're trying to accomplish. And you can simply do a math problem backwards if you understand some of the data and come up with a budget that is real. It's legitimate. It's not made up from left field or anything along those lines.
Great. Next question over here.
Hey, thank you guys for all your wonderful insight. My name is Vladimir from Tempe. My question is, this is regarding the Star Wars billboard. So say, you said that it's hard to judge the revenue that the billboard could bring. Say you're sitting down with your team and discussing contributions that everyone has made. How does the creator of the billboard create a metric for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So it's difficult. In my opinion, someone that has been in traditional marketing for an extended period of time might differ from my opinion. But it's hard to attribute revenue to a standstill billboard. It's hard to attribute revenue in a lot of cases to radio unless you have some sort of tracking or coupon offering, et cetera. I think the point that I was trying to make there is digital has kind of changed the game with that and the opportunity that exists in last click attribution. Now, I think that that's still not the best way to track your marketing results and efforts is based on last click attribution. As we talked about up here, having specific KPIs are going to lend an influence lever for different products, which is going to, at the end of the day, be what matters. But the point of the billboard, again, is I think we're trending back towards that because there are so many forms of marketing that consumers are influenced by that it becomes very difficult in a lot of cases to attribute points of sales to different marketing channels. And my goal is say, hey, let's look at the influence of all of these marketing channels. If anyone has anything else to add on that, no?
Okay, so how about maybe from a customer service standpoint, if you're a salesman, it makes sense, the dollars that you bring in, there's your metric. But if you're working on, customer retention, engagement, customer service, what metric would you provide? What metric do you have as a customer service consultant?
For traditional marketing? So for traditional marketing, and forgive me, I never was really in traditional marketing, but from a lot of traditional media sales reps that I've talked to, they say that the aspect to understand if the value is there in the billboard they put up is, did they get more business that month? And if the answer is yes, then you're attributing it to the billboard, where in fact it could be many other different influencers, but in reality that's kind of how tracking of marketing was done in the traditional era, which is simply not the way it should be done today, although it's still difficult in a lot of cases to attribute marketing channels to dollars.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the question. Next person.
Hi, my name is Rold. I live in Phoenix here. My question has to do with hiring your first marketing person. I know you guys talked about hiring an external agency or internal people, but I'm a mechanical engineer. I don't know anything about marketing, and I'm kind of looking for a little guidance. And how do I go about finding that in terms of like looking for someone that I can trust, or that's not going to just sell me on their strength. They're going to more sell me on what I need to do. Yeah.
And you can email me, eric@singlegrain.com. I'll just give you the hiring course that we put together a long time ago. But what we do, we always run them through a test, right? Because there's a lot of marketers that can interview really well, but oftentimes 95% of them they're not able to execute, right? So you put them through a homework assignment. I got this from 37 Signals, who do Basecamp, and what they do is basically they'll run them through, it could be a couple weeks, and they'll pay them $25 an hour or something like that. It's not going to be commensurate with salary, but do something like that or you can even have them run through a test where it's like, we'll give you access to our AdWords account, tell us what you would do here, or tell us what you would do 30, 60, 90 days out. Like, what do you think the opportunities are? What else do you see? And you can see how detailed their work is. Some people might just half-ass it, right? They might just give you like a paragraph and stuff. Other people will write a 4,000-word Medium post, or they might do work for you for a couple weeks. So I think the test is the biggest thing. And then the second thing is Elon Musk's question around, what's the biggest win in your career? And if they're brand new, then you probably have to default back into, what are they going to do for you and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, a couple more questions. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Alex Alamoff. I'm from Chandler. My question is, what are the best marketing strategies for tackling the classic chicken and egg problem for a new business, where you have two types of users needed for your business to work and provide value? So if you don't have one business, one type of user, you won't get the other. And if you don't have the other type of user, you won't get the other. So what are the best strategies for tackling this problem?
I'm not sure I understand the question specifically. Can
So
you provide
let's
a
say
little more context?
Yeah. So let's say for example, you have like a platform for businesses to communicate with their customers, right? If you don't have any businesses on it, you won't get any customers. If you don't have any customers, you won't get any businesses. Mm-hmm. So how would you tackle this problem for a new business just starting off?
Yeah. So I have a senior living business, and for that, you have to drive people to the site, build a community there, and you have to be able to also refer those people out. And I think whenever it comes to building a community, it's something like it all comes back to content marketing for me, at least. Especially, I'll use the gun blog as an example too. You start with that first, the community builds up. The hardest thing is building up the audience first. Once you have the audience, you can do almost whatever, right? Because Growth Everywhere, for example, I didn't sell anything for the first 2 years, and then the audience just started building, and then people started emailing me saying, hey, when are you going to sell me something? So when you have the audience going, you have everything else taken care of for the most part.
So I'd agree. And then on the create advocates, let people, like if you need people to be on your platform, like from a business standpoint, feel free to do pilots with people. Say, hey, use our platform for free for 6 months, whatever, while we build up our customer base. And a lot of customers will agree to that as long as your solution might be better than what they're doing today, et cetera. So I would say create advocates on the business side as well, to be able to kind of have that in your back pocket while you're gathering consumers to use the platform.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, 2 more questions, and then we'll go to lunch. We've gone over a little bit. Go ahead, sir.
Stan from Reno. I had a question for the panel as it relates to tracking, call recording. How important or valuable to you guys is it for transparency as far as it relates to ROI and things of that nature?
I mean, I would say, speaking from Nextiva's voice, it's very important. Understanding first where your calls are coming from, having unique phone numbers for each keyword or each ad group. Let's say if Google is a driving source of traffic is very important. But then, I mean, just even going beyond the initial call, because you can use that for coaching opportunities for sales reps or customer service reps, but then understanding the lifetime value of the customer and evaluating the interactions that they're having with your business and opportunities to upsell and satisfaction.
Totally agree.
Yeah, it's been huge for us. I mean, we used to use Ring Central, and it didn't really give us a lot of insight. Sorry if anybody works there. But yeah, once we switched to another solution that gives us keyword data, able to tag certain calls, and then be able to review with the team, look at the analytics, what sources are working, what aren't, and you can see the call duration for each source. You can tag it. I mean, that becomes infinitely more useful, and it just shows that calls actually work out for us. And calls for us are much higher quality leads.
Great. Last question.
Hello, my name is Claire, and I'm a volunteer with a Tempe-based nonprofit called communitycause.org, and I was wondering if you have any tips specifically for marketing nonprofits, and also any tips for how to work with businesses to do cause marketing that benefit both the business and the nonprofit.
So first I would do Google Grant. Are you familiar with that? So Google allows nonprofits to get up to $10,000 a month in advertising for free. There's some paperwork that's involved, but if you were just to do a search for Google Grant, that would come up. That would be the first thing that I would do, and I'll let you guys add anything on if you want. And then the second part of your question?
If you have any tips on how businesses and nonprofits can work together on cause marketing?
On cause marketing?
Cause marketing, where it benefits the company and their brand and shows goodwill, but it's also benefiting the nonprofit.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's tons of businesses that are interested in helping local organizations. I participate in a handful of things like the food bank, which creates more food for homeless folks in the San Francisco Bay Area. And there are dozens and dozens of businesses that work with them, that sponsor the food bank for specific events, who will pitch in to have them be able to host a gala for fundraising, all of these things. So if you're talking about cause marketing, whatever your nonprofit is, I promise you that there's businesses that either A, are interested in what you're doing, or B, have a budget set aside specifically to invest, if you will, or I guess for tax break purposes, in companies and organizations like yours, whether that's buy a table at an event on your behalf, whether that's help host a gala, etc. So there's definitely folks in this area. And again, to the point over here, it's really about just getting out there and marketing face-to-face, in my opinion, and for that, cause marketing.
Great. Any other questions? Yes?
One last question. My name is Ashutosh Sharwar. I'm from Gilbert. What do you guys think about the marketing done by social media networks like Facebook? To give an example, I have a photography page, AG Photoworks. I have like 21,000 followers, but I've never seen any revenue being generated out of it. It's good for advertising, it's good for spreading your name, but the real revenue comes from real networking. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think if I understand the question correctly, but I believe that Facebook ads are a great avenue for marketing your business. Takes a lot for me to say that, coming from Google, but I've seen fantastic results for businesses, and specifically with smaller budgets, I've seen really great results as well on Facebook. So hopefully this is answering your question. I would definitely recommend dancing a little bit with Facebook. You're not going to get the direct response that you would with search ads, but still some of the aspects are really good. Furthermore, in regards to verticals I've seen work really well on Facebook, there's a lot of e-commerce, being able to purchase smaller dollar items off of Facebook and seeing pretty huge ROIs in that aspect.
And like we talked about, it takes time.
Yes.
Right? It takes time, and when you use that statistic of 14.8, you have to be there, and it takes time, but you want to be in front of where your audience is, and Facebook is a large platform that it makes sense to invest in.
I'll give you something tactical that you can do with I guess, both Facebook and Google. So we talk a lot about content, right? You drive people to your content first. You have two retargeting pixels, right? You have the Google pixel and you have your Facebook pixel. Then after you indoctrinate them, because this is cold traffic first, right? You have cold, warm, and hot traffic. Take the cold traffic, retarget them, and then you're able to also target them using the remarketing search ads on Google. So let's say, for example, I send them to an article on 10 stats about digital marketing that you need to know in 2017 or something. Then afterwards, I can target people that visited that specific page on Google for a specific keyword. That way, you're not going to be paying an arm and a leg for keywords like digital marketing agency.
Yeah,
that's a great tip. Okay, last question.
Yeah, regarding we have U.S. is a multicultural country. Have several languages. People speak all kinds of languages. I speak 4 languages. My wife speaks 5 languages. Sorry, I'm a little bit emotional here. So anyway, in terms of the website, if you want to reach other people like Portuguese, Chinese, Spanish, or French, how should we put that on our website, for example?
So you're saying how to put all of those languages on the website?
Yeah, should we do that or not? That's the question.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
That's so Bill.
So you're asking, how do you make a website international? How do you make it applicable to a wide range of audiences who speak different languages? There's a feature offered by Google called hreflang, which allows you to build a XML sitemap that explains which pages are intended for which audiences who speak which languages. And it's worth incorporating that into your website. Worked with some large websites in Europe that were intended for multiple countries, multiple languages. And a search engine will get a sense of what language a person doing search speaks from what their browser preferences are, and may try to match them up to the right version, right language version of your site.
Okay. Could you repeat the first the language?
It's hreflang.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, that's it. Thank you all for your attention, and thank these panelists. Thank you so much.